because they're expecting Fnatic to ban away the Trist. That means that things like the Gnar raise in priority. Jarvan's still a very big pick for Fnatic if they can get their hands on it. But I imagine that Fnatic right now, they're going to ban away the Tristana. And they're actually going to look to leave the Elise open because they're confident that Misfits will not take the Elise themselves. So that means that then Misfits can go for a Xayah first pick. Fnatic can then trade for a... okay. So now I feel like that actually Jarvan raises huge in terms of priority for Misfits to get themselves first.
All right, so last ban away for Fnatic right now. Let's see what they end up getting rid of. 10 seconds still remaining, but 280 carries already banned.
So what have they banned away so far? They banned away Orianna. That would make a lot of sense. Cassio has also been a big ban for them. I think both those mid laners would make a lot of sense, but oh no, okay, so Jarvan has to be the first pick right now for Misfits, especially if they're going to ban it all the time. It's also a big pick for Alphari too.
So much focus on the AD carry pool. 16 seconds still ticking. Let's see what they get rid of. Oh,
come on now. You never talk about others.
But
you
it's
never talk.
Sama.
You wouldn't first pick a Draven.
I know he won't, but still. Yeah, J4. I got excited, Vedius.
All right, so Fnatic, now you got to go for the Gragas. Come for pick for Broxah with Elise banned away. Rise in priority a lot. Also, maybe a Cassio or an Orianna would be a very safe pick for Fnatic here. Or maybe, no, they won't look to get themselves the Ashe early on. With Rakan banned away, they could maybe go for an early Thresh. Of course. Cho'Gath, something that was banned away from Fnatic in Game 2. And with Gnar off the table, this is a much better top lane matchup now in favor of Misfits.
Also the Orianna that's been banned or picked. It's locked in by Caps this time around. So, with the Cho'Gath, that's a pretty beefy front line you can stick that ball onto. We'll see how Misfits Gaming answer. Zach is left up and available. Maybe the way they want to go. Maxlord had great success on it in game number 1.
I feel like that for Misfits, they should get themselves the Cassio here, along with... Ooh.
Trundle locked in.
Interesting. So that Trundle is almost certainly... you're quite right. That Trundle is very likely going to be going into the top lane against the Cho'Gath, and that Jarvan will be going into the jungle. It can be flexed to support as well. You've always got to bear that in mind, but I absolutely love Syndra Jarvan as a jungle mid combo. Something we've praised Misfits for throughout this series has been that jungle mid synergy, and I think that with these two champions, you can very easily camp that middle lane, which is great against an Orianna.
Oh, yes, you can. Something else Fnatic have shown before. In fact, the last time they met up against the Misfits has been that Kayn. It's not going to get locked in, though. I thought of maybe go into the jungle. That's why we don't talk about the hovers, Vedius. No, it's the Sejuani coming out for Broxah.
Wombo Combo Teamfight Scaling is the name of the game for Fnatic right now. You have really good engage with the Sejuani. You have good follow-up with the Cho'Gath, and then you got the damage with the Orianna. The biggest issue for Sejuani is she does have a very, very, very weak early game. And you can look to punish that if you have pushing mid and pushing top to allow your jungler to try and invade. And with a Syndra, it might be possible, but if that Trundle is in fact in the top lane, he's going to struggle in the early level. So we'll see how things go. We now move on to the ban phase. And you can already see Fnatic banning away a few supports because they're expecting that Trundle to be in the top lane. And with the Thresh ban from Misfits, this throws you in for a little bit of a loop because now you're thinking, oh, with all these support bans coming out, there's a very high likelihood that that Trundle could very well go and support itself.
Very true. Well, see if that ends up being the switcheroo here. Fnatic, do they continue to try and ban out supports? Their bottom lane is going to have some trouble. The Blitzcrank comes off the board.
So a large part of me thinks that the reason why Misfits have chosen Trundle here is because not only does he do great into tanks like Cho'Gath, but also they're expecting Fnatic to go for the Ashe once more, who is an immobile AD carry. And champions like Trundle are really good at punishing these immobile AD carries without dashes, especially during the laning phase with the use of the pillar. That can set up for a few early plays down the bottom lane. And again, Jarvan, he has a great potential to set up a lot of these plays early on.
All right, so they lock the Alistar. They leave their AD carry pick for last. And now it's Misfits Gaming to guess at, will it be the Ashe again? Or if Reckless pulls something a little bit different out of his hat.
I wonder. Because if I was Misfits, I wouldn't be against going for something like the Ashe and a Maokai. And you send the Maokai up top, you've then got a big beefy front line, you've got follow-up to the Jarvan engage. you've got 2 carries along with the tank, and then you put the Trundle in support. But it's still unknown as to where that Trundle is going to go. It's the big advantage of having these flex picks.
Yeah, Fnatic turn it around a little bit here.
You could also go for a Janet here if you're Misfits.
Yeah, just bit that fast Ardent Sensor. Instead, they lock the Gragas. So now the mystery solved.
Jarvan top, Gragas jungle, Trundle in support is what I would expect. I think Jarvan does fine into pretty much all matchups. He has good poke damage. He'll do absolutely fine versus the Cho'Gath. He's going to go a little bit off tanky, be a big split push threat a little bit later on to the game, but his main priority is joining in for these fights. And here we have the Hover. I mentioned it a little bit earlier in this series. He's been playing a lot of Jhin in solo queue, and now he's decided to bring it out against the Ashe. Still risky, still low mobile AD carry, does do a lot of damage though. Really good in terms of siege and also pick potential. 2v2 lane is actually quite lethal as well. He's going to likely start with the Doran's Ring, so he's going to have a fair amount of push, and when you pad that up with an Alistar, your CC chain can actually be very, very effective. Really excited to see this draft from Fnatic because we have a big teamfight comp coming out from them, which is going to scale insanely well. Misfits, similar, just slightly weaker team fighting purely because of the Syndra and her inability to do huge amounts of AoE damage and how it can be difficult with those big tanks in the front line later on.
We saw what happened the last time around. PoE got his hands on the Syndra with a lot of attention in the jungle from Maxlor. He was able to get out to a flying start, but that was when Caps was unaware. That was when he wasn't on the safest of picks. The Orianna is another story, and we will find out how this all unfolds. Misfits Gaming still 1 win away from booking their tickets to the finals showdown. Fnatic still hanging on the edge, trying to come back and force a deciding Game 5. Can they do it? Fnatic faithful cheering as always, but Misfits Gaming have certainly earned some fans today. They certainly had a few from prior to it all. As we get ready to load up onto Summoner's Rift, game at number 4 coming right at us. Misfits, Fnatic. The semifinals continue.
This has been a great semifinal so far. Fnatic really have been challenged. The analyst desk talked about how Misfits really have been outplaying their opposition, but Fnatic demonstrating that they still have some fuel left in the tank. Now we see some very big differences in terms of draft coming into game 4. This is going to be a very different game to what we've seen so far, and the crowd is quite animated.
Yep, epic in fact. It's appropriate. Fnatic are the lords of the Doran's Rings. So has got one, Caps of course, and then followed up by Reckless. As you expected, to give him that early pushing power. The 2v2, we've seen a lot of action down there, especially in the latter half of this series. But I do want to see if Maxlor gives a lot of attention to the mid, as he did in game 1 when PoE was on the Syndra.
So I feel like because he's on the Gragas, he actually doesn't have a... I was actually a little bit more hyped to have the Jarvan jungle rather than the Gragas jungle. And you still have threat because you have Ashe Arrow in bot, you have the stun in the mid from Syndra, and you have the EQ combo from the Jarvan, and a lot of good lanes to gank too. It's a little harder for Sejuani to be that sort of early ganker until she hits level 6, because she's very much about scaling, team fighting, whereas Gragas can, if he has the right laners, just be a bit of extra damage in CC to help get kills in the early game. It's just about whether or not he wants to, because they might choose to just play a little bit more slow and passive. Again, both sides do scale just fine, and there's no reason why you have to make anything happen in the early game. This isn't quite like an Elise game where it's pretty important for your Elise to get a lead, otherwise you're going to be at a detriment as the game progresses.
Yeah, that's true. We have seen Misfits' calling card has been trying to get things happening early for them to get kills onto key carries and allow them to get into that mid game with a much more potent set of damage dealers. And their composition, of course, might scale just as well into the late game or almost as well into the late game. But I kind of expect Maxlor to still get involved early.
I'd like to see him get involved early. I think it would be good for the Misfits squad. We know how well they can do once they've gotten themselves that early lead. But let's see how this early game progresses. Max already going for a bit of an invade. He knows that the clear speed from Sejuani is very slow. Now Broxah has been spotted. Now the best thing for Misfits to do... Oh, a bit of a trade in the bottom lane.
Yeah, Jesus had to walk the way around the pillar. Holding summoners, though. They're fine now, and here we go back to the jungle.
Yes, you want mid to push and come and help if you can, but here we are. Maxtor is here.
Okay, it's a red buff fight. Let's see whose smite is right. Actually, there. Nobody wants to hit it. There we go. All right. Looks like Broxah won out on that one, so Maxlor, he's going to have to walk home a little empty-handed.
Well calculated there from Broxah, but he couldn't commit to the fight because he saw Alfari making his way down after Alfari had already pushed this wave up, along with Power of Evil doing the same. So Maxlor had the support, he fails the steal. So early game continues to be standard. And you know, when we're in game 4, Pyra, it's always a good opportunity to reflect on series. And I feel like the big thing for Misfits is very much that Maxlor's been a big part of Misfits being able to get their early leads. Whereas Fnatic, we haven't seen a huge amount of proactivity from Broxah, but that has been in part his champion pool that he's played so far and the laners that he's had. But when he was able to get Elise, he was super proactive in the early game. And I feel like based on his positioning right now, he might be looking to try and emulate that, even though he has been spotted by Alfari.
Yeah. On the Sejuani, too, as you mentioned in the pick and ban, a little harder to do. Not as strong in the early stage of the game. It's going to come to bear much more in the team fighting phase of things. But still Broxah in lane. Alfari having to respect that. We check back in with the mid. Power of Evil sends Caps flying for just a moment. But here we go. Alfari baited, immediately forced to burn his flash.
He had to immediately flash because of the passive of Sejuani. Now Reckless and Jezz are struggling.
2v2. Volley came out there. No heal. Still being held by Reckless.
You can see how effective this pillar is, though, at punishing low mobility AD carries. It means that when you stack that with the slow from Ashe that she gets from her skills too, it makes it very difficult to walk away, and you end up losing a lot of trades. So I love how Hansama and Ignat are playing this 2v2 right now, really taking advantage of their dual lane, but also you see the Doran's Ring from Reckless to help with the push. You throw out that Q, gives you a lot more wave clear, and ideally in the early game it would help, but Ignat and Hansama are playing this 2v2 very well.
So far, nice and easy for them, but the 2v2 in the lane necessarily hasn't been the biggest thing. And last time around, remember they fell early on because Broxah was there making some early jungle presence. We won't see that this time around, but Reckless is not a player that ever gets particularly perturbed by being forced back under tower. He knows how to play safe, and as you rightly mentioned, on this Jhin, a champion that doesn't have a ton of mobility, he's going to have to respect that pillar.
I want to take this very quick opportunity to identify the difference in the mid laners. Power of Evil, Lost Chapter, and a control ward. That is the sensible and responsible thing for a mid laner to do. His counterpart, Caps, he went for Lost Chapter and Boots. Now, I understand why he went Boots. Having that extra bit of mobility against a Syndra, extremely valuable, but you do lose out on that early vision. Now, the reason why I think it's fine, because he knows that Power of Evil mainly has the push in this early game, and he couldn't really defend it if he wanted to, especially when he knows that his jungler is behind. So just want to illustrate here, while it is a little bit more selfish, it also makes sense, and he's realizing that I'd much rather have this extra lane advantage rather than try and defend a pink ward that is extremely difficult to defend.
Let's see if it works out for him. Both supports actually making their way towards this mid lane, but Power of Evil was there, and Jezz has had to go scurrying back after Ignite threw down the pillar. Once more, Broxah hanging up in the top side. A big juicy minion wave there, trying to tempt Alfari into pushing out from his tower, but this time it's not going to happen. He already burned his flash once. Maxlor going to get run into by Broxah, stealing away the Scuttle Crab. Level advantage here for Broxah as well. Flash is followed, and he's out. But still, a lot of non-committal attempts.
I just thought it was hilarious when you have two tanks chasing after each other. Both of them have the same movement speed, and neither one of them can catch the other. So they're literally millimeters apart, and that forces Broxah to flash so that he can get his extra passive proc. And Maxlor does exactly the same because he's aware that Soaz is on his way down. I just thought this really awkward interaction where he's literally like, come here, come here. He's like, no, no, no. And neither of them end up getting each other. So both of them disengage, nothing ends up happening off the back of it.
I think your explanation was actually perfect there. I like the way you interpreted it.
I also did a little dance, and I don't know why I did that.
Well, you can't see that on. Maybe we'll get a replay later. But that's beside the point. All time, though, Fnatic is a team that have been in so many long series, so much postseason for this team. We talked about Reckless, but the entire squad have been able to do it quite a lot, and they generally come out ahead. Reverse sweep's definitely not off the table here, and now Alfari gonna find that there was a Soaz waiting in the brush. Sends a few uncontested shots his way.
Soaz mainly just want to push up this wave, maintain vision control around the river, and maybe even look for a TP play. You can see very little vision invested from Fnatic down on the bottom side of the map, but they really want to make sure that Alfari does not snowball at all on this job. And remember, just backtracking to the compositional goals, both do want a team fight, but Misfits a little bit more pick orientated. They have the Syndra, they also have the Ashe, so they have a little bit more power in the mid game, catching these targets that are slightly unaware. And Caps, I think it's a little bit dangerous to be running this heal rather than the cleanse against someone like an Ashe. So we'll have to see if that comes to bite him in the butt a little bit later into the game.
That's why he's got the boots though, right?
That's why he's got the boots.
Get himself the vision, so instead just make sure he can dodge fast enough. Still though, a much quieter early game than we've seen most of this series. It may change. Broxo waiting in this brush. See if they can make moves towards it.
Level 6.
They're respecting right now. Yeah, Glacial Prison could come out at any time. But meanwhile, while he's waiting down there, Maxler taking his time to have some free jungle.
And I think this is really smart for Misfits because they're like, he's not on his reds, he's not topside. Guys, bot need to be careful.
There we go. They found the support. That's a lot of damage. Ashe Arrow comes in, but Ignar, everything burnt on him. Can he still get away? Reckless even flashing forward. The heel's already popped, and Hansama cannot body block the curtain call. Down goes Ignar for first blood.
And Fnatic find the early game advantage, but here come Misfits to answer.
Okay, there's the barrel, knocks him right into Alfari, and he throws down the swag flag. 1-to-1 in kills.
So clean response from Misfits, but Fnatic have the tempo advantage. They're already at the tower, they have the minion wave, they're gonna get this first tower gold. And I thought the Misfits would be a little bit more respectful, I thought they would be more aware, but instead they walk into the den of Fnatic, and they end up getting punished.
Yeah, every brush is a Fnatic death brush if you do it the right way. Fnatic take first tower blood, they take first blood. Looks like they'll be taking first dragon, and guess what, Vedius? It's Infernal.
Oh, it is. That means that great fire and fury will be dropped down upon their opposition. Fnatic off to a great start. We talked a lot in this series about being able to get an early lead is a big deal, specifically for Misfits, because they struggle to play from behind. But what they've done a great job of this series is even if they fall into an early deficit, they then very quickly get it back, and then they return the tempo to their advantage.
The onus is on them right now. At the very least, they can trade out for the Rift Herald. This has been kind of a specialty for Misfits in this series so far. Ping's flying on the mid right now, but it'll be a little while before they can actually make that happen. Wave moves up top, and Misfits were unable to really trade for a tower. You could see that Alfari had actually backed away. Once that kill completed, they didn't really have enough of a wave to make it happen. Soaz under tower for the time being. He knows Hansam and Ignar are both here. And we'll take a look at that play once again.
So Alfari already knew that his jungle was on his way, so he poked him down before, used his ultimate to burn the flash. And with Maxtor here, Soaz is like, oh, really? Again? You guys camped me last game. Why have you got to do it more? And they're looking for more kills, but no. Those boots coming in real handy.
That is one good reason to not be a big show gaff.
I mean, it's true.
Hard to dodge out.
But he also has bigger steps. You got to remember that too.
Yeah. So he still moves pretty fast.
Technically.
Covers more ground. All the same, eventually Misfits are going to be able to get down this turret, but a little bit behind the 8-ball this game. They finally finish it off. Fnatic, as you rightly said, tempo advantage, making moves towards the mid lane. It's Jezz and Reckless coming to join Caps and Broxa. 4 members strong, no Rift Herald, but they certainly have the pressure advantage. Here's Ignar making his way down the jungle as well. Can they collapse on Fnatic? No, they're not being given an opportunity.
A lot of wards being placed by Misfits in the red side of Fnatic's jungle. That top half of the map is entirely littered with blue wards. It means that Soaz always has to show his respect because there are a lot of windows for Misfits to try and continue their camp onto Soaz. But they're going to leave him for the time being. They've all gone back, bought a couple of juicy items. And Reckless, this item build is something I want to take a quick opportunity to talk about because he goes typically in solo queue for the Ghost Blade and then Static Shiv. Really not that effective against tanks, but it does give you a lot of wave clear and is very effective against squishy targets. And Alfari, he's not actually going to be stacking a huge amount of resistances until he completes his 2 core items of Black Cleaver and a Titanic Hydra. And then you've also got Ignar, who's relatively squishy early on, even Maxlaw is going to go Cinderhulk into Knight's Vow, and that's actually not a huge amount of resistances. So in the early game, this gives you a lot of burst damage, which means that if they force fights earlier, around the 2-item spike, that Jhin is going to be pretty strong. But once Alfari gets the tank items, once Maxlaw gets a little tankier, once Ignar is stealing away all the tank stats from his opposition, that's where this Jhin build is going to be a little bit harder to execute. So I'd like to see Fnatic try and force a couple of fights early so they can use that gold lead to maintain a bit of a gap.
You might get your wish here, Vedius. Jez's Broxa waiting in the wings, the Rift Herald being stopped up for now, and Fnatic, all of a sudden, 5 members out of nowhere. Misfits realize, oh, I guess we couldn't push that wave. Down it goes.
Good response from Fnatic, but Misfits are doing the same by sending up the Trundle to the top lane. They have a minion wave there, but they're not going to be able to get that much damage onto the tower. They don't punish Soaz for roaming through the jungle. Instead, they just see it all happen. They take a bit of more farm, funnel it into their AD carry, who's likely going to have enough now to get himself that Essence Read.
Yeah, pretty good for Hans Sama moving forward in this game. But of course, you know, his opposite number, you mentioned the interesting build that Rekkles does on this Jhin, but Rekkles overall, I mean, he had a pretty incredible game last time around. We were waiting for him to start dishing the damage that he needed to, but he really came alive, and it's nice to see him stepping up when it mattered, when Fnatic's backs were against the wall, and I think we can expect him to be able to do it again.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing whether he can do it again. Rekkles is often a common talking point. Often the fans would argue that he is a strong candidate for potential MVP.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yet to be decided. And he is always one of the staple members of Fnatic. But you've always got to remember Soaz too, even though he was camped pretty hard, very visible signs of frustration on his face, still able to have a big impact. And now, got to remember the Ash Arrow, Caps gets engaged on.
Okay, they lock him down. The power's unleashed as he flashes forward. It's Power of Evil that follows suit and scatters the weak. Now it's time to push on the mid while Fnatic are busy on the top. We're in for some tower trades.
Good punish there from Misfits onto Caps. He just wasn't paying attention as Alfari literally walked up to him and ultied him. This will allow Fnatic to get that top tower. So the tower trades will still be pretty even, but Dragon spawning in about a minute's time. This will allow Misfits to take control over that. And Misfits get themselves another tower in the bottom lane as well.
Yeah, good swing right now for Misfits. This is looking pretty excellent for this team, and maybe they weren't able to get the early kills as best they needed, but they still managed to find these objective trades in their favor. Fnatic, of course, with one Infernal. If Misfits can equalize.
It's important to remember, though, that Fnatic not getting early kills is not a massive issue. They still have really good scaling. Their team fighting composition is great. Their ability to siege is still really strong with the Jhin. Let's just see. So he did, in fact, EQ Caps. He should have just flashed immediately underneath his tower, but he holds onto it. I think that was a bit of a selfish play. And he does, in fact, get punished for it. We'll give 2 towers over to Misfits.
You know how he could have prevented that?
How?
Have an award.
Good one.
Yeah. Not able to walk out.
Well, now he's got it.
There we go. Yeah. Better late than never. All the same. Misfits holding on to this slim lead, but because the Infernal was still a while away from spawning, they weren't able to just turn for it. So Fnatic, they've actually posted up around here, and multiple members and brushes. Misfits, if they want to contest, they're going to have to take a fight.
It's going to be a big fight. Pyra.
Oh boy, here they come. Power Evil's going to be key in this one, but it looks like the Dragon is already going down. It's chomped down by Soaz. That is 2 Infernals in this game. Broxa might be left out in the pit. No, he's able to Arctic Assault just outside of it. And they're slipping away right now. Misfits, they can't find a single target. Soaz flashing out, the powers unleashed on him. It's Jezz who might be left for dead. He's got no flash, but he can still body block as he gets a headbutt pull of combo. Misfits, Hans Sama getting 1 kill, and Soaz will not make it out alive. 2 for the Dragon.
Fairly decent trade. The Dragon will have a lot more value later into the game. Ash Arrow comes out.
Oh, it's going to nail Caps. He's got no mana. He's got no summoners. The pillar's on. Ignar takes a bite out of his
What's he going to do? He's Trundle.
He's the support. Yeah, I got really excited for him.
But Ignar, he'll force Caps back. No mana, though. But still, fairly even trade. As I was saying, the Infernal Drake, yes. You might consider, oh, losing 2 members, is it really worth it? Well, kinda, yeah, because Misfits can't take any more towers. They can push the waves out, but Fnatic are just gonna catch them because the respawn timers aren't that long at this point in the game. And you're playing to late game anyway if you're Fnatic. You'd much rather have that extra bit of damage when you're in those full-blown 5v5 team fights rather than allowing your opposition to get that once they're already at a good lead so far in this game. So I think this is a fine trade for Fnatic. And the whole goal here for them is to disengage. But a really good pillar from Ignar makes it really difficult for Broxah to get out. Reckless, he's just sitting at the back of the fight while Caps is being zoned away by Ignar. And the fact that they've been split up, Reckless realized, you know what? We can't win. I'm just going to run. We don't have the CC or really the damage at this point to win out on this fight. And then Maxwell's like, would you like a drink? And then he goes, of course, dinosaurs can't drink because drinks weren't around back then. So he ends up struggling and he collapses. So he takes a nap, wakes up. Now Fnatic back to their 5 members strong.
True that, but Misfits, they're the ones who are making a push right now. It seems like they don't have a whole lot left. And now Soaz, he's woken up from his nap, looks for Power of Evil. The curtain call is open, teleport coming in, but will it be too late? As the Ash Arrow comes flying, intercepted by Broxah. Alfari jumps on top of the show, and Power of Evil unleashes the power onto his prehistoric foe. Maxlor trying to make it out with his life, and Ignar will follow suit. It's Hansama with 1 kill. Somehow Misfits are slipping away from certain death. Pillar from behind the wall, and now they've got a chance to start pushing. Might be 2 dragons in Fnatic's pocket right now, Vedius, but Misfits are the ones with the advantage pressing.
And you can hear the crowd supporting the Misfits squad. They are winning out on these fights, and you just have to wonder why Fnatic are trying to force them. We know they have the stronger scaling. We know they have the better late game. Trying to force a fight right now is not ideal. However, Misfits also played exceptionally well. Look at this stun there onto Caps. That means that he can't get his ulti down onto Power of Evil. And then Brox is forced to body block the arrow. And look at Rex's impact in this fight. He's doing nothing while his front line just gets shredded apart. Ignar then moves onto the back line, soaks up a huge amount of damage using his ulti, and then is able to escape with his life as well. Misfits playing these fights immaculately. And it's simply because Fnatic just isn't strong enough yet. They need to be more patient. They need to wait a little bit longer before they can really try and force it. But now, Misfits, they're already in a great position. Really solid gold lead. A lot of core items are being completed. Things are just going to get harder. But again, late game, still really, really good for Fnatic.
Yeah, that's going to be that holy hand grenade you were talking about. Get it all the way. 20 minutes, though, is on the clock right now. It's a 4,000 gold advantage, despite the Dragon differential. Misfits Gaming leading the charge. The damage on Power of Evil is going to be pretty real right now, and you have to start thinking back to game number 1.
And I really want you guys to just very quickly look at Power of Evil. He did not go past his turret. He saw a minion wave, he waited for the minions to hit the tower before he cleared it out, because he knows he does not have a team right now to support him. He knows that just walking up and pushing that wave will not get him anything, and he's respecting his opponents. And that's the big thing for any players at home to just be aware of, because especially once you're reaching this point in the game, giving away a kill could turn into a Baron. And it's just really good awareness from Power of Evil to just respect his opposition and not get caught out.
And that's learning from the last game exactly what ended up happening. And now 21 minutes on the clock. It's in darkness, but Misfits are the ones that are starting off this Baron. Broxah is going to make moves in, throws down the control ward. Baron's down to half health. How hard do the Misfits want to commit? The Orianna ball is in. They are looking to peel off. Teleport burned right now. And they get themselves in an advantageous position, looking for the Cho'Gath. In goes the body slam, and he flashes away. The power's unleashed. He's still going to tank it up. Alfari wants to go for the hunt. Gets the dunk. Down goes Soaz. Misfits looking for this fight. Broxah is next on the menu. And it's Hansama who throws the arrows, firing them down into the boar. And now Caps getting chased down by Alfari. Nowhere for Jesus to go, trying to get back to the team. Without a smite, do Misfits fancy their chances once more at the Baron pit?
They have to be careful because Caps does still have the shockwave. But what a great fight for Misfits. Again, using the Baron to force the fight. Something that Misfits do so regularly. It's not about necessarily getting the fight, but all they want is that TP, because Alfaris is going to come up soon. They then have that TP advantage to force a play later on into the game, and it becomes easier to play around that Baron. So as TP's in and he commits, and that is the window with which that Misfits decide to jump through. They decide to go all in onto the Cho'Gath. They force him out of the fight very quickly, and then once the tanks are gone, they can just keep on chasing the Fnatic squad down.
They need to keep this ball rolling right now. Infernal Dragon number 3 is live. Fnatic looking to make it a triple. That'll be about all they need to take over the Seven Kingdoms. I'll tell you what, let's see if Misfits can get them off of it and immediately peeling away. But the pillar's going to separate them right now. It looks like Jez is the only one who couldn't quite get over it. Flash is burned. The Ash Arrow, they don't care about the Dragon. They want the kills right now. Jez is going back in, but he's already down. And now they can turn onto the Dragon for seconds.
The biggest thing here was that so many ultis were unavailable. Alfari didn't have his. Maxwell didn't have his. Ignar didn't have it, Jez didn't have it. Neither team was really poised to go for the fight, but Fnatic thought they could rush it down. Instead, all they ended up doing was starting it, realizing that they can't fight. They then disengaged, and then a fantastic pillar from Ignar cut off the escape route from Fnatic, and then the rest of Misfits just started to chase them down. Now Ignar's going to try and play spoiler again. He's standing in the way, trying to play interference as Misfits channel the Baron down.
So as isn't here right now, they'd be depending on a Broxa steal, and the pillar lands on top of him, half committing, half fighting it out. Caps and Broxa isolated. All they need to do is finish it off, and it looks like they're going to be able to do it. The Baron on top of a kill. Misfits 10-1 up.
This is phenomenal from Misfits. Fnatic 11-2 during the regular season, considered the best team in Europe for the longest time. But Misfits come into playoffs, they come in prepared, and they are playing spectacularly, punishing the small mistakes made by Fnatic, finding the opportune fights, and getting such a significant lead that it is becoming harder and harder for Fnatic to come back from this game.
What an underdog story their journey has been, dropping one game so far in these playoffs, the one we just witnessed, but Misfits here are on the precipice of victory, earning their way to a finals. The year plan, seeing it fulfilled, or at least nearly ticked off at this point. And here is the fight that started this snowball rolling.
So again, look at Fnatic. They tried to rush down the Dragon. They know if they have the third Infernal, then there's still a possibility. But a great pillar forces the flash out from Jez's. He knows that he doesn't have his ultimate up. In fact, he may have just come off cooldown right at the end there.
Yeah.
And then the Ash Arrow was able to get the kill. And then look at this pillar once again from Ignar. This guy, Brox is just stuck in the wall. They can just finish it now. Instead, they go for the fight. They don't want to run the risk of Caps getting the shockwave, so they continue. I don't know why Handsome flashes over. It probably wasn't necessary, but they ended up getting the kills. They got the Baron anyway. They got everything they wanted, Pyra, and now they're going for the base, and they're going for the win.
Fnatic scaling be damned. Misfits, they want to close this one out right here, right now. We've seen some decisive plays end quite quickly. Two-man Scout of the Week from PoE. But Misfits will not push their luck even with this Baron buff for 2 more minutes. They don't want to fully commit to the dive.
And remember, everyone at home, if Misfits win, they force Fnatic into the gauntlet. They cannot win on points. Things become so difficult for Fnatic to make it to Worlds if Misfits can close this series out. Misfits creating so many spoilers in this playoffs as a fight kicks off mid.
Here we go. It looks like it starts off with Hansama being shut down, and Caps is the one who gets credit for it in the end. That's 1 kill. Can they turn their fortunes around? Jez's and Soaz on top of Ignar and Alfari. It looks like one of them's going to be left for dead, but the flag, the drag, trying to get away, but he's stopped up by the deadly flourish. Ignar looking to try and bait around the side. Still, though, it looks like only a minor setback for the Misfits.
For Hansa, he ends up getting caught out of position. This will delay the Baron. 1 minute, 15 seconds left on it. Fnatic, they do not want to give up without a fight. Good pick. And now Misfits, they're forced to reset. They're still in a great position to end out this game and end out the series. As you rightly said, yes, it was a slight setback, but let's see how it happens. Maxwell waiting off on the flank. Hansama, he's just kind of alone there. He doesn't have the QSS. He doesn't have the cleanse. He ends up getting shut down simply because of a bit of poor positioning.
Well, you talked about the pick and, you know, exactly what Fnatic needed. Obviously, that one comes pretty darn late in the game, but it was enough to really stymie this push, and it'll make Misfits think twice. The one time Hansama doesn't build a QSS, by the way. Well,
he will be working towards... Oh, looks like he's shifting things up a little bit, going for the pickaxe plus Zeal. Can look at his item build a little bit later on. A flash, though, from Caps.
This one's not about the items. This one is all about the action as Jez's tanks up the arrow. Looks like Misfits have been able to force back Fnatic. Teleport coming in. This mid tower is all but gone. A few more hits is all it's going to need. Knock up on Alfari. Doesn't matter. The base is broken open. 5 members strong. Misfits come crashing in. And Fnatic, their hopes of a finals, the renaissance that they promised, it's all starting to fall apart here, Vedius.
But for Misfits, this is looking amazing. They talk so much about their one-year plan. We're still going to make it to Worlds. We're still going to represent Europe. And a lot of people, myself included, thought, come on, Misfits, come on.
We didn't see it during the regular season.
Exactly,
we
didn't see it at all.
The growth just wasn't evident.
They swapped out Cacao for Max Law, and you thought to yourself, well, it doesn't feel like the team has changed all that much. They're still suffering from the same issues. If they get an early lead, they can't close things out. And towards some of the end of the season, they were just getting stomped by a lot of the other top teams. They were just sitting there in 6th place coming into playoffs, and people thought against the Unicorns of Love, they might do relatively well, but then they're going to get stomped. And especially against Fnatic, expectations were that they would be defeated, but they defy those expectations. They come in with a well-thought-out plan. They were so prepared for Fnatic. And then not only that, you combine it with the individuals stepping up, the teamwork developing into something great, and Misfits are on track to make it to their first finals within their first year of joining the LCS.
Oh my goodness, what a feat that would be. Speaking of feats of individual performance, Reckless with a flash dodge, but it is just such an incredible story for Misfits. And the important thing about those individual performances in these playoffs is we saw that in spring. We saw Alfari dominating lanes. We saw Hansama showing some of the carry potential that we expected from him in the very beginning. It wasn't there all the time. But now the stars are aligning. Everything is coming together for the Misfits. And this is against what many people, myself included, consider to be Europe's best team.
And now they're causing one of the biggest upsets that Europe may have here in spring. The Fnatic faithful still supporting their squad. There's still the possibility of a turnaround, but it is going to require a huge mistake from Misfits as the Baron draws near. Pyra, I feel like we're reaching the end of this game very soon. With that Baron coming up, with so much vision being set up in favor of Misfits around that big objectives, that will be the determiner. If Fnatic can somehow get the steal, then maybe they can win. But with Misfits securing that Baron, it will be Fnatic dropping out from playoffs and fighting for 3rd place in Paris while Misfits make it to the final.
Sweet revenge for Misfits as they were shut out by Fnatic back in the spring 3rd place decider match all the way back in Hamburg. My, how things have changed for both teams, but Misfits demonstrating such an incredible growth across the playoffs so far. 30 seconds on this Baron. As you said, Vetty, this is going to be a very big factor in how this game will end.
And if you're Misfits, you also can't help but be a little bit smug, because not too long ago, Jez said that if we were to fight Misfits in the semifinal, we would defeat them. Why? Because they are a terrible team. And that is a quote from Jez's. He expected this team to not perform at the level that could compete with Fnatic, and so far they have completely shocked everyone and are performing out of their mind, as now the Baron is about to be started.
There it goes. Could very well be the decider. Fnatic in no shape to respond right now, so it's going to be given over completely for free. The Misfits not even breaking a sweat in taking down the Baron, and now they've got 3.5 minutes to work with. Soaz is the target. The rest of the Misfits looking to close the gap, collapse on top of him. Oh, good trap there, but the pillar might be better. For now, he's going to make his escape.
Soaz and the rest of Fnatic, they have to play defense right now. Their backs are against the wall. Their options are limited. Jez is looking for a flank. If Caps can just get that big shockwave onto Power of Evil or Hansama, maybe, just maybe, they can win a fight.
That's the Wombo combo. You mentioned it in Pick and Ban. That's how Fnatic are going to win fights, but the odds are not in their favor. Giving ground, the Baron empowered minions. If there's ever a time for Fnatic to make the hero play, in comes Jez's one knockup, flashing away the rest of the Misfits scatter. It's going to be a curtain call, but will it be curtains for Fnatic as the damage is just too much? Ash Arrow lands, and the cow is turned into a side of beef. Misfits looking to break open this base. The minions are gone.
But look at the mid lane, Pyro. Look at the bottom. Fnatic, they can no longer afford to defend that top lane because the rest of their base is being destroyed. Misfits, they're going to take this inhibitor. They're looking to take the game. They're on track to taking down Fnatic.
That year plan's looking real good right now, Vedius, as the first inhibitor is going to fall. Fnatic desperately scrambling. 13 seconds still left on Jez's. They've got the win in their sights. If only they can close this one out. Down goes Soaz. That might just do it right now as Ignar's targeted up, but he's able to come back up and flash away. Broxa has no ultimate left anymore. Maxlor targeting it out. One Nexus turret is all that remains. Maxlor, those shields are so real. Jez's comes back up, and it looks like Fnatic might just be able to chase back Misfits for now.
Fnatic, they're able to hold the line, but they will lose 2 inhibitors. That pillar ended up costing Maxlor his life, and it will stop the push. 1 Nexus tower remains. Fnatic are still alive, but for how much longer? Misfits with such a significant gold lead.
13,000, and it keeps growing. Power of Evil on this Orianna is insanely huge. Just like in Game 1, we're starting to see this all come together. Yes, Misfits may not have been able to finish that off, and yes, Fnatic have a wombo combo of a comp, but it's just so overwhelming.
And let's just see here. The flank from Jez's, the idea was good, but the flash from Hansama was better. They just focused down the front line. Rekkles is just trying to do damage with his ulti, but there are too many tanks in the way blocking it. Meanwhile, the Orianna, the best he can do is try and get a shockwave, but those primary targets are too far away. Misfits, they play the fight perfectly. Jez's cannot get onto the target that he wants, and so they can just work their way through the base. Now, here, Misfits want to try and end the game. They know they have Baron empowered minions. They know they've just killed Soaz. Everything is looking good, but Broxa and the gang are able to just hold on at the very end. They get a good ulti onto Ignar. They shut him down, or they force him out of the fight, rather. Here, you can see the pillar ends up trapping Maxlor. He gets stuck under the wall, and without that front line, they feel a little bit uneasy. But now, they've regrouped. They still have a few seconds left on the Baron. They take the final inhibitor, and Misfits, they're going to try and end the game.
See if they can do it before the Baron buff even goes down. That's the last of the inhibitors. Fnatic have barely half a Nexus turret standing between them and utter defeat. Misfits knocking on the door, looking for that finish, looking to close Fnatic out. Let's see if they can do it. Trying to hold here, posturing, moving, just to make sure that Misfits can't go all in. But if a catch happens, that could be absolutely lights out here with the minion wave come crashing. Misfits in no danger of giving up just yet.
I can hear the players on stage. They are so vocal. The fight's about to start. Ulti missed.
They look for Broxa. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do a whole lot more without that Glacial Prison. However, the mini wave's no longer Baron empowered. That's a little bit of sweat off Fnatic's brow, but they might just lose the fight right here. The damage is real, and that is going to be it. A double kill from PoE. Fnatic falling to the hands of Misfits. And for this team, things are looking oh so good as they close out Fnatic. Raid boss down, and it's a date with destiny in Paris. That game, that series ended as explosively as it started, Vedius. An incredible performance from the underdogs.
They create the upset. They make it happen.
They become the upset.
Oh man, for this team, you have to recognize all the struggles and growth that they have gone through. In spring, they were looking good. They went into the slump. They come into playoffs. They get a reverse sweep versus Splice, but then they end up falling short to the Unicorns, and they get dismantled, destroyed by Fnatic in the 3rd place. Coming into the new season, expectations were unknown. We didn't really know what the change to Maxwell would do. Some people thought it would be positive, some negative. And then during the regular season, Misfits just did not match the level of expectations that anyone had of them. They had a poor performance, but then coming into playoffs, they just fixed all of their issues. They made everything come together. And now they will be one of the finalists in Paris.
You know, it was almost magical the way that they seemed to improve in the last couple of series. Regardless of how all things turn out at the end of this split, I feel like people will be talking about a Misfits playoff buff for time to come. What an incredible performance.
What a great year for Misfits, you know?
That's the plan.
That is the plan. Now, they've still got to make Worlds. If they can beat the winner of G2 versus H2K, they will be the 1st seed representatives for Europe.
just made it a lot easier for themselves, that's for sure.
Yes, they did. I'm just so impressed with the growth that this team has made, and the fact that they were able to get a 3-1 victory over Fnatic. During the regular season, they were considered the best team in Europe. Going into Rift Rivals, coming into playoffs, so many expectations. And with 2 weeks of prep, everyone thought, there's no way they'll lose to Misfits. There's just no way. And then the upset happens.
And in such a fashion. I mean, Game 3 was still a very close game that teetered on a big mistake for Misfits, cost them a game. Their composition didn't help them there, but they learned from it. This is a team that is adapting, evolving, and growing, and if it was happening under the surface, we didn't see it, but man, when it came out, it surprised everyone.
Yeah, it really did. Absolutely love watching that series. Congratulations once again to Misfits. Fans in Paris will still be able to see Fnatic. Of course, they will be playing in the 3rd place match, which is definitely not the best position that they wanted to be in, but a still great opportunity for the fans to see them play.
Absolutely, and at the same time, too, they'll also be in the gauntlet, the regional qualifier.
That's very true, yes.
So they still have, obviously, a chance to make the Worlds, but they have to get it through the number 3 seed now.
Yes, they will.
Now we're going to hear from some of the Misfits members pretty soon, reach the finals for the first time in history, so be sure to stick around for that. We're not going anywhere just yet, but I mean, what an incredible story for these guys. Like we keep going back to this year plan of theirs, but like small changes, and it just resulted in such a turnaround when the quarterfinals came and then the semis.
It's just bonkers to think how quickly they fixed their issues, because I was watching their games during week 9 and week 10 of the LCS, and I was like, oh, well, they're doing this wrong, there's this issue. Like, I thought Maxwell was a non-existent jungler. There was no teamwork. A lot of their fights were really bad.
He was like even going even.
Yeah, it was literally just Power of Evil that was like their one shining star. And then coming into playoffs, we were like, they need to fix this, they need to fix that. And then, oh, they found a 2nd carry. Oh, no, they also found a 3rd carry in Alphari and in Hans Sama.
And Maxwell's putting early jungle pressure
Maxwell was putting way more early jungle pressure. Yeah. Their teamwork seemed to be exceptional, and they were able to get early leads in every single one of their games.
And their fights have been incredible. You got to give Ignar some credit. Like, he has so many engaged champions. Why we saw the Blitzcrank. His Rakan has been impressive.
And it's that growth that was just so impressive. Like, they seem to make those changes in a week or two without anyone realizing. And now they will be going to finals. And
yeah, what a surprise, right?
And it was great to hear from Power of Evil as well, where he said, Hamburg was for me, and now Paris will be for Hans Sama. So he'll have the opportunity to play on a big stage in front of his home crowd, and I'm sure a lot of people, him included, will be excited for that.
I mean, if he has half a performance he did today, I mean, I'm sure they will be making a hell of a lot of noise in Paris.
They always do,
the whole team. Yeah, of course they do. They're some fantastic fans. But, like, seriously, like, Hans Sama, we did have a lot of question marks around him, not just during this split, but even in the spring. That was the biggest point of concern. Where was this carry player from Challenger that wrecked people on Draven? You know, maybe we thought it just wouldn't come off, but you know, now we started to see it shine through.
But all of that would not have been possible without Mr. Maxlaw, our player of the series. This man, as you rightly said, he seemed to have so much more of an impact during the game. He was setting up his laners for success, and the one thing we talked a lot about was the team's ability to recognize their win conditions and play towards that. And Maxwell was a big part of why that was able to happen. This young man has come a long way in the LCS, and he's achieved a lot, from starting with Giants, having a really good regular season, then playing onto Roccat and getting that miraculous return at the end of spring, and now onto Misfits, where he will have the opportunity to play in his first final. So great year for him, and a lot of growth being shown from the jungler, and supporting Gilius' idea that he is in fact one of the top junglers here in Europe.
Yeah, I think it's definitely kind of fair to point out that Maxlor is one of those guys that maybe people would have slept on just because there were flashier players, but ever the facilitator, setting his team up for success.
But you got to remember, like, also during the regular season, he never really showed that, right? He's just stepping up now. So there's still
but everyone is at the same time.
Exactly that. So it's really exciting to see how well Misfits and the gang will perform at the finals in Paris. I think that it will be a tough challenge, and we heard from H2K's Featherven that he still believes that G2 is the strongest team in Europe. So I think we're in for an explosive series tomorrow as well.
Oh, absolutely. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our updated bracket after the results of today. You can see Pee-wee getting ready, interviewing on stage. But of course, with Misfits taking the win, they earn their way into the finals where they'll face off against either H2K or G2 Esports. The loser of that match will face Fnatic in the third place decider. You can see on the second and third of September, respectively.
And some of the things you guys have to remember is G2 have now qualified for Worlds.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, isn't it?
We have one team from Europe that is guaranteed going to Worlds. Now, Misfits will go to Worlds if G2 win tomorrow. So Misfits did G2 a favor. Now G2 need to return the favor. And the one-year plan can finally come together if you are G2. And for Fnatic, they are locked in that gauntlet. Because of the points, because of the maximum number of points that they can gain, they are now locked into that gauntlet where they will be playing against the Unicorns of Love and Splice for sure. The final gauntlet team will be decided after tomorrow's best-of-5 semi-final between G2 and H2K. So a lot on the line in tomorrow's semi-final.
Of course, as always, but I mean, that's also a really interesting matchup. The teams, you know, having not faced each other at that level. And I feel like every team kind of coming into playoffs had a very different reason for needing to perform. You saw H2K, you know, there's always this, oh, they falter in playoffs, they don't perform super well. G2 need to kind of reclaim their title as the Kings of Europe, despite being 3-time defending champions. So there's a lot on the line for that one as well.
Yes, there certainly is. And we have an exciting game, exciting weekend of League of Legends 2.
Yeah, it's just getting started.
Yes, it certainly is. We had some earlier today, and I would recommend that if people haven't, they go and watch the SKT versus Longzhou LCK
Won't
finals,
be disappointed.
which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so was this one. But back here in Europe, in their first year in the European LCS, Misfits took on the best in Europe, and they're now ready for the finals in Paris. So let's head over to Shox for a word with some of the victors.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm joined here by Maxlor, Power of Evil, and Hans Sama after what was honestly a very impressive performance from Misfits once again. And Maxlor, I have to come to you first. You're always very outspoken. And what does it do to you? How does it feel to do this? Beat Unicorns of Love last week, no sweat. Beat Fnatic today and kind of prove a lot of people wrong.
I'm actually extremely happy that we won. But I'm not really, like, I think I played good, but I made a few mistakes that may have costed the early game, or, for example, game 3, I could have done better at the Baron, and it just threw, and they won the game, you know?
So you're more personally a bit disappointed in your play, but I think the team might be very happy with the team's play overall. Tristan, what are your main thoughts after doing almost the unthinkable and beating Fnatic here?
Well, well, so first of all, I'm extremely happy for my team because not only, like, we had a huge upset against Unicorns of Love. Before Unicorns of Love, I need to say personally, I was really worried about facing them because we lost always against them. But against Fnatic, I need to say our sport psychologist, Isma, helped me a lot to, like, just go into the games with no pressure. And, like, honestly, today was probably, like, my first career game where I had zero pressure on myself. And I feel like I performed insanely good with it.
Yeah, you guys all did. Hansama, was it similar for you? Did you also feel less nervous going into this match because you had such a great performance personally also versus the Unicorns? What was the stress like today?
I think it's mostly because I play less scared than I used to do in the regular split. And it was just, for me, playing so much better on stage against UL and Fnatic. And I'm pretty happy. Before the game, I always had the mindset to like play more aggressive in lane, just be more decisive, and it worked pretty well. So I'm happy today for our performance.
Yeah, great stuff. Congratulations. Talk to me about game 3 specifically, because it was all going really well. And then the question was, you know, will Fnatic ride this momentum out, reverse sweep them? How much was that mentally playing, Tristan?
Well, as I said before, like, after the third game, I was not worried at all because we won the 2 first games in such a, I would say, convincing fashion. And third game, I played Galio, and Galio is not a carry champion. So, fourth game, I was playing with Syndra again, and I felt really confident in that matchup, and we just went through it.
Yeah, I thought you keep looking at Maxor like you're saying something.
Maxor's judging me. He's like giving me that look, like.
I have to say, the last couple of weeks, I feel like you've become more confident in interviews as well. Last week, we're not going to, repeat it, but there were some words dropped. We heard the in-game communication as well. Do you feel like Tristan is also rising to the next level and feeling more confident game per game?
By far! By far.
Yeah, by far, all right. taking cues from the audience there. Okay, let's take a step back and look at Misfits, the one-year plan. We've said it so much, and that's also what you guys came out with. You were a big part of the change there, and I hear you all three talking much about kind of psychology and the mental. What in the end was the crucial difference that made you guys play, honestly, so much better and so much more complete in the playoffs compared to what we've seen from you so far?
Well, I would say it's because throughout the split, I think everyone has been getting more confidence and more used to playing with me. So like Hans said, he was struggling with confidence at the beginning of his laning phase. Now he's just smashing kids.
Paraphrase nicely.
Also, we are a lot more comfortable with the drafts that our coaches prepare. So we go into the games knowing what's going to happen, know what we're going to sacrifice and what we're going to play and how we're going to play around it, right? Whereas during the split, we didn't have the greatest grasp of the meta and what our style was or how we should play or whatever. And now it's like all coming together really nicely. So that's what's kind of proving the confidence when we go in game and we press tab, we see our champs, we see enemy champs, we're like, oh, what a free win.
Tristan, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in, and I would say another important factor is the decisiveness, what Hans said before as well, that in the regular split, we were all the time like, can we finish that Baron? Should we turn? But now we're just like, finish the Baron, turn, stop at 3K, turn now, and I feel like we're like so decisive, and that just wins us so many games.
And everything's much cleaner, it seems like, in game as well, where you've had troubles before of snowballing or finishing out in the mid game. That seems better. Tristan, a lot of our stories this split have been around this power of evil, the only carry on the Misfits. And where is the Hansama prodigy that we've seen in Challenger? Where is Alfari? Hans, did that personally affect you as well? The fact that maybe you knew I can do better, but I'm not doing it somehow.
I can do better, like in terms of individual play, I would say, but in Spring Split, and I think I liked more that team play, our own team play, and I struggled to learn it. And for like one split, I learned quite a lot, and knowing a lot more about macro. And so during the split, I played more scared because I always think of the enemy jungler can cheese there, and and I just respected the enemy jungler a lot. But those series, I think I respected him less because this was a death on the third game, I think. But it's fine. I play more like relaxed, more aggressive.
Who would you say you're learning from a lot within the team? Obviously, the coaching staff and the analysts. But is there someone of your teammates and players that you say, oh, he's really taught me a lot this year? Or not, that's also fine.
Oh, in Spring Split, Gina taught me a lot, and Hussein too. So I'm glad they're there to work with me.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about respect and respecting all the things, and we noticed in the first games that Fnatic was doing a lot of plays that they pulled off in the regular season, but maybe they also had a bit of disrespect, and maybe they also got trapped in the Misfits are the underdog idea. Did you have the same impression when you were in-game, or is that just a wrong assessment from me?
Well, I feel like we kind of knew how they play more now, and we've also progressed as a team. And when we do something, we're all five on the same page, whereas I feel like Fnatic might not all be on the same page. And so in that instance, they can give up an objective because of that. We could be faster in tempo, and I believe that's what we want today.
Maxlor, you famously said in the beginning of the split, I'll be the best jungler if I am not already. We often laughed about it, and I think you were able to banter about it as well. You're good like that, but honestly, you were great in the series. You've been good in the playoffs. How far do you think you're off from that goal?
Well, it really depends on how the enemy jungler plays as well, right? So if enemy jungler played perfectly this series, then he would have been better, and they would have maybe won, but we both made mistakes. So I'm not going to go out of the series and say, like, I played perfectly, I smashed this guy. I still made loads of mistakes that I have to learn from. However, I do believe I'm up there in the jungle rankings, maybe underrated, but that's fine. And we'll prove it in finals or possibly worlds.
Yeah, you made up some ranks, my friend.
You're like the perfect mix between the banter and a bit of the light trash talk and the humbleness. I think the fans may appreciate. You're like, yeah, of course I am. Yeah. Before we move on to the bracket and your possible opponent in the finals, I want to go to you, Hans Sama. A very special day is coming up, and I'm just not only talking about the final. You get to play in Paris in front of the crazy French crowd, and I've also had someone tell me, a couple of people, that you are very, very loved there, and they will be screaming your name. On top of that, it is your birthday, this Saturday in Paris. How are you looking forward to just that weekend?
I'm looking forward for this match to September. It's my birthday, and the match I will try my best to prepare the best I can for the series, and I will be really proud to play in my hometown and will make my French fans proud. Okay.
I think they will cheer a lot for you as well, and it will help the rest of the team. We're very excited to see you there. Let's take a look at the bracket and talk about your possible opponents in the final, because tomorrow G2 up versus H2K. So in terms of Worlds, right, you guys have sent Fnatic to the gauntlet no matter what. If G2 win tomorrow, that means that you guys either win the split or either second, and then you go to Worlds either way. So I can imagine you'd want G2 to win, but realistically, what do you think about this matchup tomorrow?
I think it's going to be favored for G2. I think they've picked up a lot in playoffs and they're playing pretty good right now. And I don't think H2K will keep up with them in macro.
Oh, I saw you, I don't know if you agreed. You were...
After the Splash series, I'm not that sure about that one, because I think H2K improved a lot, and if they can just pull out their regular split performance, then they can, I think, beat them in the 3-2 fashion.
I think you should say G2 will win, so it gives them confidence. So you know they can.
G2 will 100% win.
Yeah.
I trust in them.
So you have the blessing of these guys here. Hans Sama, do you have a preference for tomorrow? Obviously the G2, but who do you think will win?
G2.
G2, yeah.
I believe in G2.
You believe in G2, giving them all your powers. We'll see.
Yeah, we're sorry for H2K, but G2 will
Actually,
win.
one person needs to swap to H2K or the cast the curse or whatever it's called.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be
H2K
pro
will win.
player curse.
H2K will win.
Wait, so you just took my spot before I said H2K will win,
did.
and then now he's changing it around.
I thought he would say H2K.
So in the famous words of Daniel Drakos, will you win the title, Maxlo?
There's a high chance of it, yeah.
Yeah, well, why don't you laugh at me, but you laughed in his face when he asked you that question.
No, but there's something I said during this bit, and that's when it's someone's birthday, you can't lose. And it's his birthday on Saturday, so...
It is. So all the stars have aligned. So maybe a final question to wrap it up. It's been a roller coaster for you guys from our perspective, and I feel for you guys as well. You play the regular split, you don't really beat any top teams consistently. Then you come in, people think you'll be the underdog, which you are. You beat the Unicorn 3-0. You beat the fabled possible winners of the split, Fnatic 3-1. It's super convincing. How do you hang on to that now? How do you make sure that you replicate that in just 1 week and you show everyone wrong, Tristan?
Well, I think in nearly every team I were, I was always the underdog. UL, we were always the underdog. Origin, Spring Split, then we got second as well. We were also the underdog. And I think Misfits right now as well, like we became sixth. And I feel like it's just easy to play as an underdog.
Easier to play as an underdog. I think it shows so far. You guys have done fantastically. Thank you guys very much for speaking to me. Congratulations on a fantastic performance in the playoffs so far, and we will see you guys in Paris.
See you there?
Yeah, I left a pause, but that was a bit awkward for me. All right, thank you guys very much. We are going to sign off right now. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow with G2 versus H2K, so we'll see you then.
We are on.